Hello, my name is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. So apparently there's a rumor floating out there that Kareen, a character in Amazoff's fanfiction, The Reigns of Power, who is a non-existent sister to Isildur and an imaginary daughter to Elendil, will be having a romance with the fanfiction son of Al-Pharazon named Kevin. First, let's go over some facts. On your screen, you see a timeline of the second age from the Tolkien Gateway. I have a link to this below, as well as some other links to some of the characters I mentioned, so you can read this over in detail on your own. Okay, but as I said, let's go over some facts. Tolkien never created a daughter for Elendil, nor did he create any children for Al-Pharazon. Next, even taking into account the compressed timeline Amazoff is creating, or I should say distorting, from the actual canon timeline, and the fact that those of Numenorian blood at this time can live potentially for hundreds of years, and the possibility that Al-Pharazon might have had a child old enough to romance a child of Elendil, even taking all of that into account, this is the time period when Al-Pharazon would have had already begun implementing the horrific worship of Morgoth, including the creation of a giant temple dedicated to the Great Dark Lord. Al-Pharazon would also have been well into the persecution of the Faithful, which included things like human sacrifice, the burning of the Faithful alive on the altar of the Morgoth, seizing their possessions, all sorts of stuff like that. The Faithful were those people of Numenor who remained true to evil Uvatar, the one true God, and to his servants in the Undying Lands of Valor and the Maiar. The Faithful were those who remained true friends to their old brothers as children of evil Uvatar, those being the elves, as well as the other men back in Middle-earth. The Faithful were also known as the Elendili. You know, the followers of Elendil, the putative father of fanfiction Kareen. Now, let's not get lost in a series of events, but in short order, here's a compressed version of what you could read in an extended timeline. Right? Earenil the Mariner, for his reward in remaining faithful to the Valar and aiding and alerting the Valar to the increasing depredations of Morgoth at the end of the First Age, was elevated above other men and his followers, and they were given the Island of Numenor. His son Elros was its first king. Many generations later, his descendant Miriel was the last rightful heir and queen of Numenor, but our throne was usurped by Pharazon, her cousin, who proclaimed himself Al-Pharazon, the king of Numenor, and married Miriel against her will. Now, before all this happened, Pharazon was actually a good dude. He was an elite warrior, respected leader. Then he got power hungry and sought only glory and immortality. After usurping the throne, he learned of Sauron starting another war on Middle-earth. So Al-Pharazon led a vast armada to Middle-earth. The forces he led was so powerful, Sauron knew his army cannot defeat them. So Sauron pretended to surrender and let Al-Pharazon take him into custody. It took only 9 years, but in just those 9 years, Sauron mind-raped almost the entire population of Numenor into becoming Morgoth worshippers. In 9 years, he went from a prisoner who led a massive army of millions of orcs, who was known to be someone who was profoundly evil for thousands of years, okay? Before humanity even existed. He went from being a prisoner on an island of humans who had largely peaceful lives, being faithful to the Valar, evil Uvatar, and friends to the elves, and wanted to explore the world and make peace and settlement everywhere. In 9 years, he then went to being the chief advisor to Al-Pharazon, who now led an island full of human sacrificing, warmongering Morgoth worshippers. You see, Sauron had a plan. He convinced Al-Pharazon that he can gain immortality by invading the Undying Lands. Manwë did not want to harm the humans. He was so incensed that he sunk the fleet and sunk Numenor. He then turned the earth from a flat world into the Alvoid sphere where it was known to humans thereafter, and lifted them on the Undying Lands away from the earth. The Undying Lands can only be reached by Eor's consent, and no one can go from Undying Lands to the earth without either Manwë or Eor's consent. That's right, Sauron manipulated Eor himself into eliminating Sauron's greatest threat, the Numenorians. Of course, Sauron was barred by Eor thereafter for assuming a fair and pleasing form, which meant he could only look like an elf or a man. Anyway. And then Sauron, in spirit form, carried the ring back to the north with him. The important point here is that the Rings of Power had already been crafted before Numenor was sunk. The only survivors of Numenor were the Elendili, which means the Faithful, who had 9 great ships crammed full of loyalists. 4 of those ships were led by Elendil, 5 were led by his only children created by Tolkien, Isildur and Anarion. These ships were going to be destroyed by Eor's destruction of Numenor, for Eor's rage was great, but so was his forgiveness. So a storm carried the ships to Middle-earth, 4 of them landed in the north and led to the founding of the Kingdom of Ardor under Elendil. 5 lands in the south, which led to the founding of the Kingdom of Gondor under the joint kingship of Isildur and Anarion in the capital as Gilead. Side note, just to be aware for Lord of the Rings lore in general, it's important to be aware that the Numenorians had colonies all over ancient Europe, and while most of them were killed in the destruction of Al-Pharazon's armada and sinking of Numenor, others survived in those colonies. Okay? That's sufficient history in the legendary J.R.R. Tolkien actually created. Okay? That takes place, here's the timeline now, that takes place starting from the settlement of Numenor and ending with the formation of Arnor and Gondor over the course of 3,320 years. The Rings of Power were forged about 1,500 years of the founding of Numenor, and almost exactly 1,500 SA or Second Age. From Al-Pharazon usurpation to Elendil landing in Middle-earth was about 75 years, ending in the year of the Second Age, 3,320. Now, this is a compressed timeline to some degree in this show, which they've said they're going to do, potentially anywhere from 75 to 3,500 years, just what we know so far. So why is Amazoff doing this? Well, obviously bad writing. They don't know how to tell stories, as I'm about to point out. We know they have a very limited license from the Tolkien estate. From what we know, they cannot contradict anything Tolkien created directly. They cannot do anything that changes established canon events. Any use of a created character has to be essentially in ways that change nothing about existing characters or the setting. And let me be fair here. Within those bounds, Amazoff could create a wonderful series, for example, depicting the fall of Numenor. I would not even have a problem with the creation of Corrine and Kemen in that regard. To paraphrase an old argument, just because Tolkien didn't write Aragorn taking a pee does not mean Aragorn never urinated in over his 100 years of life. For example, maybe in a good version of this series that exists in some other reality that Amazoff does not exist in, or that we've been exiled from and condemned to live in this one, Tolkien did not write Aragorn. Maybe in a new word when Tolkien wrote Aragorn taking a pee, right? Maybe in a good version of reality, Kemen might hate what his dad is doing. He might feel guilty because he's basically the product of Al-Pharazon sexually assaulting Mila over and over again. And not that the weak Kemen's fault, but he'd feel guilty about it if he found out. Maybe Kemen is trying to redeem his line, the line that went unstretched from Earenil to his mother. He shows you a true defender of Earenil, a true member of the Faithful, helping the Faithful who Elendil is leading escape from being burnt in the temple of Melkor. And Kemen could die heroically, thus not altering the canon in any way, but being a good contribution to an expanded secondary universe, which could buff the canon, so to speak. Not change it, not alter it, but but like many of the good fan fiction films out there, which I will link to two of them below, expand the canon a little bit in a way that's enjoyable without taking away from it or detracting from it or disrespecting it. Now, I literally just made up that scenario when I was typing this up about an hour ago. It took like 1.5 minutes to type that paragraph. I can bet my paragraph that I typed in for 1 minute is going to be better than whatever Amazoff's fan fiction is going to be in this series coming out in a month or two. From all accounts, fact and rumor, Amazoff appears to be making what we call a teen drama with fantasy elements, with a healthy dash of woke. Kind of like the superhero shows in the CW. And let me be 100% clear here. I'm not complaining about any woke elements in this video, okay? I personally don't go for woke, but to be honest, there's not more of media space in the vast internet for those who want to create original woke and have it out there as entertainment to not bastardize existing products. We all should be able to create what we want, and if someone wants to like it, then they can enjoy it without taking it from what other people want. But bad writing is always going to be a far worse problem than wokeism, because bad writing covers up the evils of wokeism, the evils of Marxism. I don't want to get political towards this video. Right? So focusing on this rumor in the context of what we already know, for a fact that they're doing, what could this relationship be for? Well, we know they want to sex this up. They're highly restrained to be able to show the Tolkien canon character sleep around, since in the canon, Galadriel was already married for like 1,000 years by this time, the time the show would take place. So for Galadriel, they appear to go with a girl power route with her, having her lead arm from the front or free climbing a mountain like we saw in the trailer. Though I want to note, it's entirely in official Tolkien canon context for Galadriel to have full armor and be more than capable of holding a sword. She's a trained military leader of the Noldor and Vanir, and she's of royal heritage. Her one grandfather is the ancient king of the Noldor elves, and her other grandfather is the first king of the Vanir elves. Okay. So don't focus on the armor or the sword. Focus on the other stuff with her. I highly suspect that Kareen and Kemen, who in my head I keep thinking of Seaman, are going to be looking or portrayed as something like between 16 and 23. This is the prime age for those teen soap opera storytelling shows you see on like the CW or on a lot of web shows and whatnot now. So my best hypothesis is that these character storylines will be centered around having an illicit relationship. Not about them doing heroic deeds, not about them struggling, like Kevin struggling with his father's growing evil, or struggling with the worship of Melkor. Not about surviving in a horrific environment. Not about not Kareen having to help her family escape, help the faithful escape from the trials they're undergoing. None of that. Not about any of that. I highly suspect they're gonna be about their relationship. It's gonna be an illicit relationship because Al-Pharazon is the king and Elendil is just a regular sailor. Okay, and then either Kemen will have to prove his loyalty to his dad by burning her alive, because he's going to be like the evil son ultimately, right? Or she will have to use her feminine wiles or girl power to kill him under the pretext of relationship. Wait, are we watching True Blood with elves, Valar, and Mara instead of vampires and werewolves, or is this supposed to be something related to Lord of the Rings? So just some final thoughts here. It's just fracking bad fan fiction. That's all this is going to turn out to be. Nothing, and I mean nothing, I have heard from this show, and I was willing to give it, some chances that they could just pick a pocket of the universe Tolkien sort of said was there but didn't explore and just create some stories there. I was willing to go with that, okay? But this is just going to be bad fan fiction. Not good fan fiction, like, for example, if Naruto fan fiction where, like, what if Naruto was trained properly? Or in Star Wars, like, what if Anakin didn't fall? Or any other type of existing product where they make a change and write a story about it. Many of us have read fan fiction over the years. No, this is that section of the fan fiction websites that you click on and a pop-up appears on the screen. You have to enter your birthday to show your age, and then it's going to say you need to change your filter to mature unrestricted to read what's in there. Okay? Welcome to Amazoff, the Lord of Fan Fiction, Game of Rings. Special thanks goes out to Zaxx, a great friend of the channel, along with other members of Salty Texas Siege Wolfpack. Zaxx took time out from his never-ending villainous attempts to defeat the Incredible Hulk in order to aid in the production of this video. Comment down below if you please, or if you don't, if you have any questions for me. Share this video if you will. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. My name is Matt. This has been Unbearable 73. Have a nice day, and I am out of here.